Genesis chapter 39. Joseph in the service of Potiphar. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, commander of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. The Lord was with Joseph while he lived in the house of his master the Egyptian, and everything went well with him. His master could see that God was with Joseph, and everything worked well for him. So Joseph pleased his master, who made him overseer of his house and of all that he owned, and from the time he put him in charge of his household and all his possessions. God blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. He blessed all that the Egyptian owned, his household and his land. The Egyptian left all he had in the care of Joseph, and with Joseph fully in charge, he concerned himself with nothing except the food that he ate. Now Joseph was a handsome man and well built. After some time, his master's wife, who had her eyes on him, said to him, "Sleep with me." But he refused and said to her, "With me in charge, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and has entrusted to me all that he has. He is no more master in this house than I am, and he has kept nothing from me except yourself, of course, because you are his wife. How then could I do such an evil thing and sin against God?" Although day after day she kept on speaking to Joseph, he would not agree to sleep with her or give himself to her. It happened that one day, when he entered the house to attend to his duties, none of the domestic servants was in the house. Then Potiphar's wife caught hold of Joseph by his cloak, saying, "Come to bed with me." But Joseph left his cloak in her hands and ran out of the house. Seeing that he had left the cloak in her hands as he ran out of the house, she called the domestic servants and said, "Look, a Hebrew has been brought here to insult us. He came here to molest me." So I screamed, and when he heard me scream, he left his cloak with me and ran out of the house. Then she kept the cloak by her until the master came home. She then told him this story: "That Hebrew slave of yours came to make sport of me, but when I screamed, he left his cloak with me and ran out of the house." Joseph in prison. When his master heard what his wife told him, "This is how your servants treated me," he blazed with anger. He took Joseph and put him in prison, where the king's prisoners were kept. But while Joseph was in prison, the Lord was with him and showed him kindness, so that he was well liked by the warden of the prison. The warden put him in charge of all the prisoners and made him responsible for all that was done there. The warden did not interfere with anything that was under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him and gave him success in everything he did. Genesis chapter 40. Dreams interpreted. Some time after this, it happened that the chief cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his chief baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was kept. So the captain of the guard appointed Joseph to attend to their needs, for they were under arrest for some time. One night both of them dreamed, each one of his own dream, and each dream had its own meaning. For the cupbearer and for the baker of the king of Egypt, who were in jail. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he questioned the officers of the Pharaoh, who were under arrest in the house of his master, saying, "Why do you look sad today?" They answered, "Both of us have had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Is it not God who interprets dreams? Tell me what they were." Then the chief cupbearer told Joseph what his dream had been. "In my dream there was a vine in front of me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As it grew and flowered, its clusters ripened into grapes, Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in his hand. Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will raise your head and restore you to your office, and you will place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as before when you were his cupbearer. But when things go well with you, remember me and be kind enough to recommend to Pharaoh and get me out of this place. For I was, in fact, kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve imprisonment." The chief baker, seeing that the interpretation was favorable, said to Joseph, "In my dream, however, I had on my head 3 baskets of white cakes. In the top basket there were all kinds of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it from the basket above my head." Joseph said, "This is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days, and before 3 days are past, Pharaoh will raise your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh." It so happened that on the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his officers and raised the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. The chief cupbearer was restored to his office, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker was hanged, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Psalm chapter 19. God's glory in creation and in the law. The heavens declare the glory of God, the firmament proclaims the work of his hands. Day pours forth speech today, night hands on the knowledge tonight. There is no speech, there are no words, their voice is not heard. But their voices go out throughout the earth, their message is felt to the ends of the world. High above he pitched a tent for the sun, who comes out like a bridegroom leaving his pavilion, and like a champion set to run his course. Rising from one end, it makes its course to the other end, and nothing is hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, it gives life to the soul. The word of the Lord is trustworthy, it gives wisdom to the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, they give joy to the heart. The commandments of the Lord are clear, they enlighten the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, it endures forever. The judgments of the Lord are true, all of them just and right. They are more precious than gold, pure gold of the highest quality. They are much sweeter than honey and drippings from the honeycomb. By them is your servant warned, in keeping them there is great reward. But who can detect failings? Cleanse me from hidden faults. Preserve me from willful sin. Do not let it get the better of your servant. Then will I be blameless and innocent of grave offense. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart find favor in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Matthew chapter 13, verse 1 to 30. The parable of the sower. That same day Jesus left the house and sat down by the lakeside. So great a crowd gathered around him that he got in a boat. There he sat while the whole crowd stood on the shore, and he spoke to them in parables about many things. Jesus said, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some of the seeds fell along the footpath, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where there was not much soil, and the seeds sprouted quickly, because the soil was not deep. When the sun rose, the plants were scorched and withered because they had no roots. Again other seeds fell among thistles, and the thistles grew and choked the plants. Still other seeds fell on good soil and produced a crop, some 100 times, others 60 times, others 30 times what was sown. If you have ears, then hear. Then the disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" Jesus answered, "To you has been given the privilege of knowing the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but not to these people. For the one who has will be given more, and he will have in abundance. But the one who does not have will be deprived of even what he has. That is why I speak to them in parables, because they look and yet do not see. They hear, but they do not listen or understand. In them the words of the prophet Isaiah came true. Much that you hear, you do not understand. Much as you see, you do not perceive. For the heart of these people has grown dull. Their ears hardly hear, and their eyes refuse to see. For if they were to see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, they would turn back, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For I tell you that many prophets and upright people longed to see the things you see, but they did not, and to hear the things you hear, but they did not. Now listen to the parable of the sower. When a person hears the message of the kingdom but refuses to answer it, the devil comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is the seed that fell along the footpath. The seed that fell on rocky ground stands for the one who hears the word and accepts it at once with joy. But it has no roots in him and lasts only for a short time. When he is harassed or persecuted because of the word, he soon gives up. The seed that fell among the thistles stands for the one who hears the word, but then the worries of this life and the love of money choke the word, and it does not bear fruit. But the seed that fell on good soil is the one who hears the word and understands it. This bears fruit and produces 100 or 60 or 30 times more. The parable of the weeds. Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven can be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and left. When the plant sprouted and produced grain, the weeds also appeared. Then the servants of the owner came to him and said, "Sir, was it not good seed that you sowed in your field? Where did the weeds come from?" He answered, "This is the work of an enemy." They asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull up the weeds?" He told them, "No. When you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the weeds with them. Let them just grow together until harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the workers, pull up the weeds first, then tie them in bundles and burn them. Then gather the wheat into my barn."